This video will go in depth on some heavy topics listed on the screen. If you are uncomfortable with this, I suggest putting this video off, for these topics are going to be the main theme of the entire video. With Ryōshū's Canto just around the corner, I wanted to do some speculations about egos that may appear in her battle pass. In each season there's egos from 3 different abnormalities that somehow relate to the season theme and to its main singer specifically. Of course, one ego, the symbol of season, is for that main singer, but every other one also does fit them. Like how Tears of Tarnished Blood is somehow representative of Hanlu's overall arc and story, being about his self-sacrifice and acceptance of his position. Rashid being representation of that position, taking all of their burdens, that he's just a John, a doll that takes all of family's curses, covered in talismans with their wishes. And 100-Footed Death Maggot is about a family's obsession-like faith in the concept of immortality, and sirens. Today we are going to predict 2 other abnormalities, not the one for Ryōshū, because in the middle of the script, Project Moon decided to suddenly spoil her main ego. If they went by their usual timing, I would have made this video in time, but whatever the director wishes. It doesn't really change anything in my analysis, every ego that will be on other sinners could theoretically take in that place. And it also gives me one more ego to talk about, so let's start with that. But again, due to the nature of Ryunosuke Akutagawa's works, his life story and by extension the themes of Ryōshū's character, I will be talking about suicide a lot. So, the next season name is Kumenoito Akanoito, which means Spider's Thread, Red Thread. The Spider's Thread part is a reference to other work of Ryunosuke Akutagawa. A reminder, he is the author of Hellscreen, Ryōshū's source material. I talked about it briefly in my previous videos. It is a story about a sinner in hell that is given a chance by Buddha to get out. He dropped a web to him, and the sinner started his climb. But he soon realized that other sinners also are trying to get out with this web. He feared that the thread will snap, and yelled to everyone to get off, because this is his web. And right after that, it snapped, leaving him to fall down in the endless sea of blood. And Red Thread is a reference to a concept from Chinese mythology. You probably know it, it's a popular thing in the media. The idea is, each person has an invisible thread on their fingers that tie to the person they're destined to be with. Ancient soulmate trope. And it is, seemingly, the main idea of this to be named ego. But how is it relevant to Ryōshū? Let me tell you about the Hellscreen story, as quick and simple as possible. More details will be brought up when they're important. Our main character is Yoshihide, the greatest painter of the land. He works for Lord of Harikawa, the Emperor of Japan. Yoshihide's daughter is also employed by him, as a lady-in-waiting, and he wants her. It is heavily implied that he's at least tried to force himself onto her. In the meantime, Yoshihide asks Harikawa to burn someone alive, for an inspiration to the painting of Buddhist hell that he needs to make, Hellscreen. And in the act of revenge for not complying with him, Harikawa burns his daughter. Yoshihide finishes the painting and hangs himself shortly after. On the ego, Ryōshū is tied by the red thread, it's all around her, like chains. Harikawa wants her, and people like him always get what they want. You can't oppose him. This is her destiny. When I first saw her, I thought that her clothes looked like a wedding dress. But what is this supposed to be in that case? A whale? And then I looked up how Japanese dresses look, and yeah, it is. So, I guess this is what her Canto will be about, trying to escape horrible destiny and abuse. Spider's Thread is kind of about that, a slim chance to escape eternal damnation, one single opportunity given from above to reject your destiny, that was ruined by human greed. The question is, why is this her theme, if it's about Yoshihide's daughter, while Ryōshū is definitely Yoshihide's representation? Who knows? She actually being his daughter was a theory even before this. Maybe they just fused these 2 characters into one, and his daughter wouldn't be a character at all. But she has quite a lot of parental iconography, and Lehane literally talked about her baby. We can only wait. Oh, and also, a little footnote. I often see people calling Yoshihide's daughter Yuzuki. This is not in the book. Ryunosuke wrote her to be unnamed. She was given the name Yuzuki in the most popular English translation. Project Moon of course will give her a name if she will be a character, and it can be Yuzuki, why not use an already commonly recognized name? But it bugs me to call her that way for now, this is just fanfiction at the end of the day. As for small things, I find it interesting that the red thread in the mythology is specifically attached to the fingers, when Ryōshū's character is somehow tied to, well, the fingers. Specifically, it tied to a man's thumb and woman's pinky. And the first character that we saw who is connected to Ryōshū, Leihen, is a both thumb and pinky member. This ego is pretty likely to be our first Aleph. Every character has vowel already, some even more than one. And if this will be the case, ego risk level will be neatly symmetrically distributed among Cantos. First 4 the highest level is He, second 4 is Vav, and last 4 is Aleph. And in Dante's Canto we'll get Taumiel, I guess. And if it is the case, the new abnormality for that makes sense. First Aleph abnormality for the first Aleph ego. Fundo I think will be the second senior for it. Well, perfect candidate is Hanlu, obviously. It's not even funny to be honest. They practically ignored the vending from the book in his Canto, which was literally the most important story bit of the book. They turned it into random, by the way we are married, you go girl. And now, a Canto later, we are actually getting the ego about abusive unwanted marriage. This feels like a slap in the face, but okay, whatever. Another one is Heathcliff. His fate is intertwined with Catherine's, even though it's destructive for both of them. He also already has an ego with red wraps aesthetic, which will be funny. I can also see Otis. Odysseus' main motivation is his wife, but it's not really abusive. I see it more as a reference to Calypso, a nymph that held him hostage and forced herself onto him. Okay, now we can do proper predictions. And our first one is Ardor Blossom Moth. It's a moth made out of flame that looks beautiful, enchanting. It makes you want to touch it, to embrace, to be devoured by its flames. Of course, the main motive here is the moth's self-destructing tendency to fly into sources of fire. And that is the main reason for this pick, self-destructing because of Yoshihide's and death by flames because of his daughter. Ryōshū, of course, is not the only sinner with that kind of destiny in the source material. What makes her special? Let's talk about Ryunosuke Akutagawa. After his birth, his mother developed a serious mental illness. For the entirety of his life, he was scared that it could happen to him. He believed that if this would happen, his life would be over. Eventually, he got worse, with the reported symptoms of schizophrenia. He thought about death a lot. The theme of suicide is at least acknowledged in almost half of all his works. When the time came, he wrote his last note, pragmatically pondering about motives, inspirations, religion, and even explained the choice of the method, calling some other ones not aesthetic enough. It feels kind of bad to talk about real persons with real struggles in the context of some silly video game, but in the end, this is a part of our history and culture. I want to consider it more as a celebration of his life and works, not as a mockery of them. Isn't it actually beautiful that this game helps stories like this reach a wider audience? Ryunosuke is a very interesting person. I highly suggest you to read more of his works, not just Hellscreen. I like to think about Ryōshū in a similar vein as about Isan. Not just a character from one specific story, but a collective image of the author's works and representation of their overall thoughts. That was heavy. I promise you that this was the heaviest part. We're here for some funky analysis after all. Other than that, iconography of a butterfly is important to Ryōshū, of course. Her icon is literally a burning butterfly, with some kanji on it. What does it mean? It's a Yojijukuga, for character idiom. This one roughly translates to all things in nature. Individual kanji it means forest, net, uncountable amount, form. So, forest-like net of endless amounts of different things. But, wait, on her symbol they changed kanji about amount to the kanji that means fire. That of course changed the idiom's meaning. You can interpret it just laying fire over the main meaning, like everything in the words is on fire. Or like an all-consuming net of flames. In the game they choose forest for the flames for this, and yeah, it's simple and effective. This reminds me of Ishmael's corrosion line, where she wants to put the entire world on fire. Another thing, butterflies in Japanese culture can represent soul of living and dead. So I can see here an idea of her daughter that was burned alive, and now she is the flame, and she wants you there too. She burned and now the entire world must burn. Or like, a desire for revenge for her on Ryōshū's part. By the way, her main ego has a butterfly silhouette. As for other sinners that can get it, I want Faust. Like, I want a Ardor Blossom Moth since the game's release. And it's the only ego from release that we still haven't received the second one. Homunculus yearned to be free from his flask, and in the end, he shattered into the sea, disappearing into a burst of flame. Next one is Monkey Tree. Monkeys are potentially important iconography for Ryōshū. Yoshihide often was called Saruhide, Saru means monkey, as a way to mock him, because he apparently looked like one. One day their lord Horikawa was gifted with a monkey, and his son named it Yoshihide. It was a gift from someone from the province of Tamba? Like, that monkey and Yoshihide's daughter later became friends, and it eventually died with her, trying to save her from the flames. There is a theory, by the way, that Ryoshi actually presents the monkey, not the real Yoshihide or his daughter. That would have been pretty funny, I guess. Anyway, why is this abnormality called monkey tree? Well, for no reason actually. I always thought that maybe it's like something about monkey's paw, breaking branch, finger curls, something like that. But it's just a bad translation, there's no monkeys at all. You know that the English names of event-only abnormalities are not canon and they can change on release. Its Korean name is Wonguimo. If you insert it into the translator, it will give you nothing, because it is actually Chinese words written with Hangul. They do that sometimes. It means something like the vengeful spirit tree, revenant tree. It specifically references Yanggyu, Chinese type of evil spirits, but for the purposes of this, they are pretty similar to every other imagination of vengeful spirits in other cultures. Where are the monkeys from? The only possible explanation I can see is that its first syllable is won, just like the word for monkey. It doesn't really make sense, like where the rest of the monkey syllables are from, but I guess it will be a mystery for the rest of time. Anyway, this abnormality is a reference to Canto 13 of Dante's Inferno. There Dante is on the second ring of 7th circle, which is reserved for ones who are violent against themselves. You know where it is going. Souls of those sinners became trees. When Dante snaps one branch, it wails, begs for mercy and bleeds. Of course, it is here mainly because of suicide iconography. It's always hard to understand themes of abnormalities when they are just events. Ego phrases actually help a lot, but my guess is that it can be about treating those kind of people. About how in society that act can be seen as something horrible and selfish, something bad and unforgivable. In the book, the sinner is asking Dante why he treats him like that. They were humans, they don't deserve it. And in the dungeon event, the best outcome is to give it water. It's like you quenched its age-long thirst. You know, that you should treat it with respect and everything. And I can relate it to Ryunosuke. In his last note, he wrote that, unlike red-haired people, he does not believe that it is a sin, and goes into details about it in Buddhism. He believes that considering it acceptable only if it was unavoidable is stupid, because to the person committing it, it is always unavoidable. As for lesser things, trees are a part of Ryōshū's iconography as well. Forest for the flames and all that. This tree looks burnt and boils any water, so... This is a silly half-joke, but one of the types of vengeful spirits in Korean folklore specifically is Choinaguisin, or a virgin ghost. It was believed that when a woman dies before having any children, she fails her responsibilities in life, and so becomes an evil ghost. Sure do love ancient folklore. They are often depicted wearing sabok, a white mourning attire, kind of the one on Ryōshū's main ego. Yoshihide's daughter was killed because she refused to be with the man. Am I cooking or what? As for other sinners, my first thoughts are Yisan. He definitely has similar iconography, just look at the end of the wings, and overall really Yisan's mindset. Did you know that he planned to commit double suicide with Kim Yo-jun, an author on whom Dambek and Jamsun are partially based on? An act he called Chonsa, by the way, love death. They had an interesting relationship. In my previous prediction I also put this into Hanlu's second tier, but with this Canto I don't really think so, like, maybe? It still fits if we go strictly by the book, but his in-game lore is so far apart from it. Maybe in the third tier. Also, I said that the episode this abnormality is referring to is in Canto 8, and like, no, I just somehow saw 10 as 5, it's Canto 13 actually. Oopsie! Great analysis, Jigger. Next one, Stuck in Heaven. Hell isn't the book's name, haha. I'll try to make it brief, since it already was in Hanlu's video. This abnormality is about something that took root inside your heart, something that impales you, something stuck inside. This is the part of you now. You can't look away, you see it even with your eyes closed. And it is something that feels natural to you. It is something that is only visible through the eyes of others. For Ryōshū, I see it as her vision of art, that she sees horrible violence as something beautiful. The same goes for Yoshihide. While it is implied that Harikawa killed his daughter because he couldn't have her, the narrator thinks that it is a punishment for going too far with his painting. That he really asked Harikawa to kill a person, just as a reference for him. So yeah, something completely normal and even beautiful to her, but in the eyes of others it's horrendous. I believe that this part of Ryōshū, besides the obvious nod to her book, can stem from Ryunosuke's attitude toward death. As I said already, he was kind of obsessed with it. In his last note, he described some methods of death as not aesthetically pleasing enough. And maybe even from his approach to art. Art was really important to him, more important than a lot of things. Art for art's sake, and all of that. For example, look at this part of A Life of a Stupid Man, his autobiography.
You fellows still have a strong will to live, I suppose.
Yes, of course, but you too.
Not anymore. I do have the will to create, though.
Or this one, which is pretty similar to Hellscreen situation. If he needed a corpse for his work, he would kill someone without the slightest malice. Also, towards the end of his life, he suffered from hallucinations. Just like his mother, just like he always feared. And this pretty much vibes with abnormality, I guess. Someone that you can't escape and don't know that it isn't real. Okay, other sinners I honestly just want to leave the same. Hanwoo still is a perfect candidate, arguably even better after his Canto, like the whole main trauma with things that he must see, and Jade is something that stuck and impales him. Ishmael because of obsession and stuff, and Gregor, if we interpret his PTSD, as heaven. I really like this comment. Honestly, just give it to us already, it fits like half of sinners. And lastly, my form empties. This one is pretty obvious, honestly. It is like Buddhism the abnormality, and Ryōshū has a lot of Buddhistic iconography, more than any other sinner. Quick reminder of some things. Name of the season is a story about Buddha. Her basic name is Yojijukugo that doesn't apply directly to Buddhism, but arguably can have some meaning in it. But on her adachi, there are 3 other Yojijukugas that are a lot more direct. This one means something like losing yourself. This one is screaming in agony, and this one is being torn apart. These 2 characters are a Buddhistic term, anatta, non-self, one of core Buddhistic principles denying the existence of I, like abnormality tries to do so, trying to forget itself by mantra. These 2 characters are Avicii, the lowest of hells in Buddhism, and this one again doesn't have an obvious relation. Her signature is this quote for Nirvana Sutra, inspiration for Hellscreen was a folktale story about a Buddhist painter whose house catch aflame with his wife, children and all paintings of Buddhas. And he was standing and watching it, thinking about how beautiful it is and how it will help him draw better. Buddhism was important for Ryunosuke. He talked about how his doings are not sinful from Buddhist perception in his last note. And, of course, the Hellscreen is a painting of Buddhist hell. So yeah, I think you got it. A lot of iconography. Overall theme of abnormality just plainly fits her, I guess. Kind of hard to talk about its overall theme, because it can feel like just all Buddhism concepts. Like, both Otis and Heathcliff talk about karma in their ego phrases, and this fits her. Idea that Yoshihide got what he deserved, asking to burn person alive. Desire to revenge from Ryōshū, all of that. The overall concept of emptiness I feel like makes sense for her, but I'm not really an expert in this religion, so it's hard for me to say. Don't want to be wrong. I also throw a theory that this abnormality could be about religious hypocrisy, heresy, like how it is not empty actually, but full of gods, that it has a halo, while it says that it tries to reach enlightenment, but didn't yet. Also, like, it brainwashes people into becoming its followers, but like, it's an abnormality, of course it will have abilities like that. Overall, sounds interesting, but I don't know, nothing in the phrases or mirror dungeon event or observation logs really screams that for me. As for other sinners that I wanted on, it's definitely Sinclair. Been wanting it since I realized that Siddhartha, an Indian novel, is written by Hermann Hesse. That's all. Popular Buddhism fiction by one of the sinner's original authors. Sadly, I doubt that we'll see Sinclair in this battle pass, because he already got Waff in the previous one, so maybe Rodia, Karma and all. And that's it, pretty much, for my first tier. Just like with Hanlu, I've made an entire tier list based on how much abnormality suits Ryōshū. First one is the perfect fit. Second one is something that suits only partly, like one important theme of abnormality is missing from the scenery, but everything else is perfect. Or maybe everything makes sense, but I don't think that those themes are important enough for the character to be in the first one. Third is something where I see some cool overlays, but they're too small and the rest of abnormality is a miss. Fourth is almost nothing but vibes, something that small that it seems too stretch even for me. And fifth is a backflip territory. Unlike my Hanlu predictions, I will not cover second tier here, don't want to stretch it too much, deadline is pretty close. But I will make a quick explanation for each of them in the form of YouTube shorts sometime later, so keep an eye on that. Thanks for watching, we'll see how many backflips I will need to do this time. Honestly, I won't be sad if I miss completely again. Like, this Canto must be a wildcard. Its source is not clearly defined. It's based on a short story with references to another short stories from the author, like Yi-san. They must do something unexpected, there's just not enough material for full Canto. It would be cool if they use some Ryunosuke stories that I'm not familiar with. This is one of my many problems with Canto 8, honestly. Like, there they had the biggest inner book as a material, a perfect opportunity to show things from the book with some cool Project Moon twists and turns. Just like in Heathcliff's Canto, but for some reason they decided to do something almost unrelated, with main characters being unrecognizable besides their name, main spotlight being on completely new ones even when this book has so many side characters, overall Canto focusing so much on side characters instead of our Sinner, and like, Sinner being so much different from his book counterpart. I don't want to say that I hated it, like, Zetsu is actually a highlight, but come on, did we really need an original character and related to the book being so important, when the book had characters with similar roles, like Buddhist and Taoist monks? Did we really need references to water margins? Isn't, again, largest Sinner book enough of material for the whole Canto? I just didn't get anything that I wanted from it book-wise, you know? I don't think that every Canto must be like Heathcliff's. Yi-san's Canto is one of my favorites. Ishmael of course must stray away from the source material, even if it's that big, because of the nature of how it's written. I feel that even Don's Canto did a better job at portraying the main ideas of the book, and that went in completely different direction vibe-wise. I just feel like Hanlu specifically deserved Heathcliff treatment. I also feel like there were a lot more hints at his lore based on the book than it turned out. Like, wedding iconography is actually not important at all. Cool. This bell in his ego is actually a bell that tolls in his nest, something that we couldn't know before it. So any theories were like, pointless? Made me really reconsider how I look at this type of things, honestly. But yeah, I'm sorry for being dramatic, I still love this game more than anything and can't wait for Canto 9. Just please be good. Thank you for watching, thanks to my manager who asked for like everything besides the script and my voice. See you next time. My next video is the one I spent the most time working on, and also my favorite one ever. Also, please read some of Ryunosuke's works, it's brilliant. I also have some platforms where you can support me, like and subscribe I guess.